Before Mrs. Rajivi introduces him to you, I would just like you to say that he has assisted Mr. I. Mahadevan, worked with him. And I'd like to also tell you that all the drawings for Mr. Mahadevan's book on the concordance of the various seals of the Indus Valley civilization were done by our artists.
A small introduction about Shri Sukumar Rajagopal. Shri Sukumar has been researching the Indus Valley civilization informally since 2007 and formally since 2009. He considers himself fortunate to have received tutelage from late Shri Ayravada Mahadevan. Shri Sukumar has published 4 papers on the Indus Valley civilization in international journals. One of his papers on the Bengal symbology of the Indus Valley civilization was published as a chapter in the recent book, The Wonder That Was Harappan Civilization. Shri Sukumar also had the honor of presenting the Bengal symbology paper at the World Classical Tamil Conference held in June 2010 at Coimbatore. Now I invite Shri Sukumar to present his views on the IVC tablets and seals are the micro arts of the Indus Valley civilization.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. I know we are running behind time. Let's see what we can do. I'll start my presentation with invoking my teacher for his blessings. With his help, I started writing my first paper, and it so happens that my first paper was reviewed none other than Professor Michel Danino here. Which is more artistic? This is from Shamanis. It is an Assyrian thing from 825 BC. I am told that I should no longer say IVC. Prabhakar sir was saying I should say IC only. So I actually sent these 2 things to a archaeozoologist in the country of Georgia. I located her through the internet and sent it to her to see what this animal is, right? Because we think this is a mythical animal. I wanted to see what she thinks, and she was observing that look at the kind of detail they have put into this small sea. It's incredible what they have done. So this particular conference on the art of the Indus Valley civilization, I think it's a phenomenal concept. And I want to argue that every tablet and seal is an art. It's a micro art. Now, what do you think this represents? You will be surprised to note that my entire speech is going to be on this one particular tablet. This is from Harappa. What does this represent? Now, there has been a lot of talk about continuity, right? I find it difficult to accept that there is no continuity between Harappa and later day India. That's a difficult thing to argue. All evidence points that there is some continuity. So this, if you look at it here, there are 5 swastikas. Are you all able to see that at the back? Now, I have been looking at the seal for, I don't know, 15 years. Every time I look at it, I will generate some theory. Maybe, when I say 5, what from modern day Hinduism or any Indian concept you could think of? Panchapudangal, 5 Pandavas, Panchaksharam of Shiva's name, Anjara Poti, even that I thought. What we use for cooking, right, to put the 5 spaces. But you know where any of that would break down? Can anybody see? And it took me a long time to observe that this swastika is right turning, this is left turning, right turning, left turning, right turning. So we know from the symbology of the swastika that swastika direction is also important. Right? The right turning and the left turning. So that gave me a clue as to what this could be. And I started thinking, and I'm going to explain to you what happened. So I'll prove to you today that there was a festival that the Indus celebrated every 8 years in honor of the goddess of Venus. This is a popular goddess in Bronze Age, which happens every 8 years. And I believe that this is an entry from an ancient Panchangam. Anybody use a panchangam here in your family, an almanac? I know it is after lunch and you are all tired, but you can do a show of hands. Have you all heard the word panchangam? Ah, great. Okay, some of you. So, this is one entry is what I am going to prove to you. Hopefully, I will also prove to you where this octennial festival in the Indus might have even happened, which is something that is also interesting. And I am also about to show you towards the end that this methodology can decipher the first ever YVC seal that was discovered. Okay, so now let's look at this seal. It starts right on top, and we all agree. This is probably one of the few things all Indus scholars agree. Right? We have no consensus on what language it is, but everyone agrees that it is read right to left. I hope there is no dispute here in this scholarly community. So you start reading from right to left. So there is a tiger, there is a drummer. I don't think there can be any dispute about that. Now the next few symbols are symbolic in nature. There are two intersecting circles. There is two vertical lines, and then there is the famous jar symbol. On the other side, you have the top three symbols repeated again, and then the 5 swastikas in a very curious combination. Yeah, so far okay with me? And these are all formal signs in the Indus script as identified by Mahadevan Concordance. He did not represent the left turning swastika as a separate sign. He included it as a variation of the primary sign, which I think is okay. Now, I use a certain type of research methodology, right? T.S. Subramanian is here. He is the author of this book, The Wonder That Was Harappan Civilization. My paper was, two is great paper. My third paper was included in this book. I am grateful to Shri T.S. Subramanian. But the interesting thing here was, this seal, I think someone covered this. This is the contest for a girl's hand seal. Right? There is a girl here. And then there is a fight going on. There is a tiger goddess. And many people have tried to interpret this. But my curiosity stemmed from, this girl doesn't have bangles on both arms. Whereas the tiger goddess has bangles on both arms. Anybody notice that? Now that I pointed out, you would notice it. But it appears that I am one of the first few people to notice that. And then I came up with the hypothesis that unmarried girls wore bangles in only one arm and married women wear bangles in both arms. And the bronze, the dancing girl has been discussed today ad nauseum. If you remember that image, you will notice that it has row of bangles only in one arm. So I believe that the dancing girl was unmarried. So my methodology is to take seals that are so unique that there is no other seal like that. So the Venus seal, there is no other seal. I believe that these seals are special and they contain highly encoded information. Most of the researchers go after a broader pattern, like you have seen many researchers today. I want to go after just one thing and see what happens. The uniqueness of the writing system, I think this is not appropriate for this audience. I'm going to skip this. This is again, the interesting thing I came up with this. I am able to interpret the seal without knowing 6 out of the 7 words that are represented here. That I think is extremely unique about the Indus script. This is an entry from the Panchangam, for those of you that have not seen it. Now I borrowed the Panchangam from many parts of India. All of them have the same pattern. That is, they will start, today because we have started following the Gregorian calendar, you will see the English month, then the moon's thing, then what is the nakshatram on that day and what are you supposed to do. So this is Tamil Varuda Parappu, this is New Year, and after that happens Rama Navami. And why this is important, I am going to tell you. So the almanac just says Tamil New Year. Do you all know what you are supposed to do? Whatever ritual, assuming you practice rituals. Rama Navami, do you know what rituals you are supposed to do? Whether you know or not, the almanac doesn't describe that. It doesn't need to, because that is contextual knowledge. We all know it. Whatever it, and if you didn't know, you can call your family priest and say, hey, what am I supposed to do on Rama Navami? And they will tell you. The almanac need not concern itself with that. Now, because of that, what is an important point here? The brevity of the writing. There are only 5 symbols in the almanac. With that, they have communicated massive amount of information. So, I am going to prove to you that that seal is an entry from an ancient almanac. Okay? This I have already said. Now, the antiquity of the almanac tradition. This goes back thousands of years. I think Professor Mitchell here and anybody arguing continuity, this is, I don't know anything that is more continuous than this that we could find. This is literally goes back thousands of years. And across India, now, like any other Indian thing, can you guess how many almanacs we have? Any random guess? Panchangam, how many kinds do we have? Okay, those are the 60 almanac makers that, okay, that was a trick question, Professor Mitchell. That 60 are the ones that responded to this survey by Meghnad Saha. There are probably 600 of them or maybe 1,000 of them. Every community has its own almanac, but the pattern is the same. In my community, we use this Pambu Panchangam. So it is splintered, and I am not going to get into the splinters of how the calendar traditions will split because that's not important for us in this particular discussion. We're going to skip this. Now, what is the religion, right? If you look at what Parpola has said, he has specific, he calls this a fertility cult, and he also talks a lot about the astronomy of it. And I decided to call this the astral fertility religion. You see, Mother Goddess, it's obvious that there's some kind of religious God-like woman. And what could it be? Mother Goddess. It doesn't take I think, very big stretch of imagination to make that guess. So now what is this swastika? Right? This, I think this is one of my most important findings. What does this represent? It represents the planet Venus. Now why does it do that? Any of you here study astronomy of any kind? Okay. Anybody show of hands? Okay. I will keep asking questions. If I don't get any response, it's not clear whether you have an answer or not. Okay. It's a Nazi symbol. We did not get into that, right? That's out of the scope of the discussion. Now, Venus has a unique pattern. Okay. Every 8 years, it returns to the same point in the horizon. Somehow the Harappans had spotted that. And what it does, it has a 584-day, 19-month cycle in which it has 2 visible phases, 9 months, and then it disappears, appears again for 9 months. Now, what is unique about 9 months? This is general knowledge. What is 9 months represent? All the women at least. The period of pregnancy. 9 months, right? So, Venus is a fertility goddess, makes sense. Appears, disappears. It's also the morning star and the evening star. Many cultures did not see the morning and evening star at the same thing. Harappans did that. So, 5 times. Now, what happens is, this is a diagram from the European Space Observatory. Okay, it starts here. My hands are shaking a bit. So, it goes something like this. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 4 to 4, 5, like that it comes back. Every time it makes a turn, so the swastika represent one cycle. This is why they put 5 swastikas. You are all with me so far? Now you don't have to agree with anything you say. Just tell me if I'm communicating it or not. Because this is a very complex piece of research and you may or may not agree and that's okay. I'm just telling you my point of view. Now, why is this important, right? These are, I mean, I don't know how far I can go with this, but I want to show you what happened. How did I find out that this is the swastika? One day I was looking at the NASA site and I found this trajectory of the Venus. What does this look like to you? This. Yes, use some imagination. It's right here. Snake. Okay, so what I did was I used a photoshopping tool called GIMP and reversed that and put it like this. So they have spotted the path. And now in astronomy, they call it the prograde and the retrograde motion, that it appears to go backwards and forwards according to geocentric point of view. From a heliocentric point of view, it just makes a circle. But from a geocentric point of view, this is the pattern it traces. So this is the forward loop, this is the backward loop. So swastika is the Venus. This is my hypothesis. Now, in Dravidian, I know Dravidian is a very politically loaded word these days, but I use it in the context of a language family. Okay? In the language family of Dravidian, we have this tradition of Sennagan and Karunagan. This itself has astronomy behind it, which I am not going to be able to get into, but the red snake and the black snake for those that don't know Tamil. So swastika is the Venus and it is representing the two snakes which are brothers. They are sons of Venus. This is my interpretation. Now why is this important? You will all agree or you have all seen that swastika is there across the world. I am not making that up. There was a book written by Wilson in the year 1844, which is considered to be, it is the most authentic text on swastika. I have read it, it is this thick. But unfortunately in 1844, the knowledge of the fact that there is something called Indus Valley was not known. So his book does not mention that, but we saw so many descriptions today of the swastika appearing in the Indus corpus over and over. I found this two snake coiled in the swastika shape in Lithuania. Now why Lithuania? In many European parts there was a pre-European, pre-modern European culture based on the mother goddess snake, all of that. And you will notice here two snakes opposing each other. Now when you see two snakes in Indian tradition, how are they depicted typically? Anybody has seen snakes? You can see them, snake sculptures everywhere. But there is a specific thing shown whenever there are two snakes. What is that? They are intertwined, right? But do you know what is being represented in that? Anybody students of zoology or what are the two snakes doing? Okay, they are two copulating snakes. It's a fertility symbol. But in swastika, these two are brothers. They are not copulating. They are just fighting for dominance. Now, why is this Venus so important, right? Again, I am not going to be able to describe to you the entire astronomy behind it. But for an agricultural civilization, tracking of the sun and the seasons was very important. You should know when it's going to rain. Yes? Yes, no, you can even at least do this, then I know. If you just stare at me, I don't know whether I'm getting through or not. So what happens is, so they are tracking that. Now, sun, if you follow the sun, right, and the moon, these are two different calendar systems. You all agree with that, right? Now, these two go out of sync. Because the lunar month rotation is different from the solar, which is the sidereal. So they needed a tool to synchronize that, which is the Venus trajectory, which is the only thing that repeats itself without any changes. The sun and the moon slowly changes over time. But the Venus maintains a 19-year cycle. And in every 8 years, because it comes back, they can calibrate the sun and moon and coordinate those calendars. And there were octennial festivals in Greece, which is the precursor to the Olympics, which are held now every 4 years. Right? This is the octennial festival. Now, Venus, in Sangam literature, you can see I have given some references. We are not going to go through that. But there is heavy references to Venus and rainfall. Whenever the Venus makes its retrograde motion, in Tamil it's called Ten Payanam. Right? The sun also makes that same thing. Uttarayanam and Dakshinayanam, the same thing. The prograde and the retrograde. It was associated with rainfall. I am going to come to why this Venus and rainfall is important. I also found in Kautilya's Arthashastra a reference to the Venus, which is again an ancient document from ancient India. But here, the Jupiter has also been added, and I am going to show you how the whole thing has shifted. Now, what are these two vertical lines? Parpola has shown that this is Venus. And how he has shown that is two vertical lines is the gap is Veli, right? In Dravidian, Veli, which sounds very similar to Velli. What is Velli? Silver, which is Venus. In Tamil, the Venus is called Vidi Velli. Some of you are aware of that? Yeah? So this is the Venus. And the fish symbol and these two occur together, sometimes just the two vertical lines. So we can be sure that this is the Venus. Now, why is this important? I tried to look at, can I arrive at the word Venus through vertical lines through some other language? Say Sanskrit or Munda, which are the two other candidate languages for the Indus. I couldn't arrive there. So it's fairly certain to me, assuming my interpretation is correct, that this is the Venus and Parpola is correct. The two intersecting circles, this is the conjunction between the two things. And the jar symbol, I think already has been pointed out, is the sacrificial offering jar. Now here is where it gets more interesting. Okay, so who originated the zodiac calendar system that we all follow? Where is it from? Any idea? This is general knowledge. Where in the world it supposedly came from? Greece. Good guess. Now, where did Greece get it from? They got it from Babylon. Okay. So, I have to show you that this whole star chart system originated in Harappa. Now, what happens is it goes around the world and comes back to us in a new form, which is very interesting. Now, how do I know that, right? Walter Maunder, a British astronomer, looked at the star charts of the world and calculated which culture could have potentially drawn these star charts first. And he calculated that altitude should be north 37 or 38. And they should have lived approximately 4,000 years old. There's a lot of science behind it, but this is his conclusion. Now, Greek, right? Ptolemy lived in 31 degree north latitude. He couldn't have done that. It couldn't be from Babylon also. So it could be, I was looking at where is it? In Shortugai. It's part of Indus. It's one of the northernmost trade posts of the Indus civilization. So that is where the original star chart was made. So the Harappans made it. Now, so I told you the tiger, right? It starts, if you remember the symbol, it starts with the tiger. What is the constellation name, which is it after Cancer? What is the zodiac after Cancer? Leo? Yeah? Or is it Leo Cancer, whatever? Now, that I believe was the tiger constellation originally. Again, an interesting observation I made. There is no lion in the Indus Valley corpus. Absence of horses has been beaten to death. But lion, there is no lion. How come? And you know what? There are some researchers who plotted the path of the lion. Like humans have come out of Africa, somebody studied where all lions went. And there were lions in the Indus Valley civilization during the time the civilization was thriving. How come they didn't represent the lion? Any guesses? Why not put it there? Hey, I see it, lion, important animal, put it there. Because they chose to represent themselves as the tiger people. Now, the same Venus goddess was seated on a lion in Sumer, which is one of their important trading partners. So, they choose to represent themselves as tiger. Now, what happens is when this tiger constellation goes through, so what happens is it goes during the Islamic period, it goes through Islam and then goes to Europe, gets translated and comes back to us through the British occupation of India. So look at this. What is this animal? You can make a guess. It's a tiger, right? It has spots. But this is a zodiac bowl representing the 12 zodiac signs. They put a tiger because they are still in the early days of translating. They put the tiger, but when it went to Europe and elsewhere, they don't know tiger. They replaced it by lion, and it comes back to us as Leo constellation. It gets even better. What is this? What is this? Sorry? Libra. But notice carefully what is happening. The person is carrying the scales on their head like this. Does anybody carry the scales like that? You carry it like this, isn't it? Or here. Not like this. So what is the closest in Indian tradition where you carry two things like this with something hanging? What is that? Yeah, water. But you don't carry the balancing scale like this, right? You will. This is the kavadi, I believe. Because the kavadi is very well attested and represented in the Indus corpus. So the kavadi becomes a balance over a period of time and comes back to us as tula. Yeah. Now we have we now have, look at the seal, right? We have the tiger constellation. When the sun rises in Leo and Venus is also rising, what is happening to the moon? It's a full moon day, and you all know that the months and full moon, there is a significance, right? Paurnami, whichever month it is happening, some of you at least know. So I thought the full moon happening in the 27th star, that will be the brightest night of that day, of that year. So 8 years later, Venus has come back to the same place. Sun is rising in Leo because that's where they spotted it. Moon is having a full moon. How many of you have looked at the Venus in the sky? Do you see it as a spectacular object? 5,000 years ago, you will be flummoxed. Wow, this is some bright thing, and without any pollution, it would have looked even better. So it was a spectacular day. That is the day that which they decided to celebrate this 8-year festival. And I took references from Surya Siddhanta, which is a very famous astronomical text. And this drum symbol, so all the 27 nakshatras have a symbol allocated to them, and drum symbol is allocated to both Revati and the nakshatram of Dhanishta, which precedes it. Yeah. So you have the drummer, you have the Venus, you have all of it. Right now you have kind of got it. 8th year when all of these happening is a major festival. Now how do we know it's a festival? Because the jar symbol is there. Even today when weddings happen, what do we play? At least this you should all be able to answer. At least the people that got married in India, what do they play? Not mridangam, it's medam. Getty medam, right? Beating this like this. So that's how they communicated that this is an important festival. Okay, we are going to skip this, how this Venus and things, the Swarbanu, I'm not going to get into that. So what happens is, as the culture shifts, we shifted from Venus to Jovian. That is, we started going after Jupiter. What is the festival that is celebrated every 12 years in India? Kumbh Mela in the north, but south? Where is it celebrated? Mahamagam, excellent. Kumbhakonam. Anybody have attended that festival? You have been to the tank, ma'am? You watched it. It gets very crowded, yeah. So, how did the 8 years become 12 years? Because we shifted from Venusian astronomy to Jupiterian astronomy. Jupiter revolves around the sun every 12 years. It comes back to Aquarius every 12 years when the Mahamagam happens. Okay, now why is this important? I'm going to skip how this whole transition happened. What is this? It's written at the bottom. It's one of the most famous pictures from the Great Bath. This is the Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro. Now, what is unique about Great Bath, which I didn't know as I started to do this research, there is no Great Bath in any other Harappan city. How come? If this structure is so important, how come it's not there in any other place? Now, some researchers have gone ahead and looked at Harappa, and what they found is there is a lot of connection to water, right? This is what happened. So I believe that this 8-year festival is celebrated in the Great Bath like we do Mahamagam today every 12 years. Now how do I know this? This is the curious thing here. Around the Great Bath, there are 8 bathrooms. And the bathrooms are constructed in such a way that they don't open out to each other. You have to go upstairs. So you can't see when the person is taking bath and coming out. You can't see that. So there is very high level of privacy ascribed to that, which means what? Likely these are very high status, and women need that kind of privacy, not men, correct? Generally. So these are 8 high priestesses of Venus who would have come, and I believe why there is only one great bath is all over people from Indus Valley came to that place to take bath, take the holy dip on that day. So that's what happened. Now how do I know further, right? There is this, now we have this tendency in the Indus, not tendency, I have seen it many times. Any structure, it should be a warehouse. So like that, there is a warehouse that was found, which has very interesting characteristics. It has 27 blocks. I am thinking that could be the temple of the moon with its 27 stars, right? So each has a 4 corners, and this is I believe the symbolism behind 108. There is all kinds of fancy theories about what is this 108. But the simplest theory, one that I think is reasonable, is moon makes every nakshatram, it has 4 parts to it every day. 27 times 4. Do any of you know your birth star? Birth nakshatram. Along with the nakshatram, there will also be one padam. Right? It will not be just the nakshatram, it will also be whatever. Purattadi, Moonam, Padam, whatever. So because it could be in the first step through 4th, either of these steps. That's how the 27 times 4 comes. So this is the grand temple of Venus, I believe. The moon. Now how did they celebrate it? I believe they got all of the people from everywhere and they did this. Now let's go to my last part of my presentation and then I will take questions. This is the first ever seal that was discovered. When Cunningham makes the announcement, this is the seal he uses. Okay, now let's look at the repeating pattern. The first symbol is, we have not discussed this, but I am going to tell you. But this symbol has been identified as Mercury by Parpola. Why it is, you can go through that. The intersection, the conjunction symbol, and again the 2 vertical lines and then the jar symbol. 2 vertical symbols we already know, it's Venus. So we know Mercury, we know Venus. What is this going on here? This is I believe the vernal equinox. So on the vertical vernal equinox, I don't know if anybody studied the Jewish tradition here. I don't know, Professor, you have done that. They observed an astronomical feature called Shekinah. It's a very ancient astronomical observation. I believe it is this. Now I have not proven this yet. Now I have to write another paper to show that this is possible. But this is what I believe. So this methodology, this is an important finding, I think. Varaha Mihira in his Brihat Samhita has written, there will be rain if Mercury and Venus or Mercury and Jupiter or Venus and Jupiter should meet. If Saturn and Mars, so there is Mercury and Venus conjunction is very important for predicting rainfall. Okay, so now I will ask you one last question. What is the connection between snakes and rainfall? After this, I am done. Snakes and rainfall. Fertility. Yes. Yes, partly correct, ma'am. For this, okay, so this is interesting. You all agree that most of the symbols are cobras. You can in fact see hooded structures. So clearly these snakes are cobras. There is no doubt about that. The king cobra. Now the king cobra has a very interesting feature. It is the only snake that builds its nest above the ground. Now where does it do that? It chooses a particular altitude to build its nest by predicting how much rain would come that monsoon. So depending on at what height the Ophiophagus hana, which is the king cobra, where it is building its nets, we could predict how much rainfall is going to come during that monsoon, and accordingly we can adjust our agricultural practices. Now this is tribal wisdom. Across India we have been tracking this bird comes, rain will come. There's all kinds of tribal wisdom that you might have heard of, but snake, this is why the snake is important. Two snakes, the brothers, the swastika, Venus is connected to rainfall, everything falls into place. And when does the festival of the snakes happen? What day? The 5, Nag Panchami. Right, I saw, I think, Selva Kumar talking about 5 things happening. I saw 5 steps, 8 strokes. Maybe they are all connected to Venus, I don't know. Right, so this is my last slide. I am grateful to all of these people. I think Subramaniam Chandrasekhar was here somewhere in the morning. He is no longer here. He helped me with some of the research. This is where I am. I am stopping here. With that, I can take any questions. We have about 15 minutes.
Just to check you that the cobra you see, Vishnu is the cobra. King cobra is only found in the rainforests like Andaman.
Okay.
What you are talking about, like cobra which builds its nest
Ah,
ground, is the regular cobra.
regular cobra. Okay. But the feature of cobra, that what I said is true, because I have studied research.
The one with the like the two eyes, that is the cobra.
Okay. But this the important thing about the cobra I found is it's a meteorological device. It can help you predict when rain will come. I am not knowledgeable enough in zoology to say precisely what you are talking about. I will take your words for it. Yes, there's a lot of questions.
I am Dr. Indus Sharma. I read your one two. I read your 1-2 paper, and I wrote thanks also. And first of all, I will congratulate you for your wonderful presentation. And I will request you proceed, see all the seals in the National Museum and Archaeological Survey and other smaller museum of Indus Valley Civilization.
Yes, thank you.
When I begin in the Harappan section National Museum, at that time I made a listing of all the Harappan seal and sealing and published by National Museum. Very cheap, some 65 rupees. You can buy it. I read several books, but I was much impressed with the Mahadevan work. I still feel this is the standard work done by Archaeological Survey of India. But later on, when Parpola came, he came in my room several times. His assistants came. She was there for 2 years. They copied, then they wrote also. But Parpola is very good. But he has preconceived idea in his mind.
Okay.
That is sometimes other people won't accept, especially
Yes.
S.R. Rao and other people.
Yes.
If you need, I will send my book. I wrote 3 books on Indus seal and sealing. One is a small book from National Museum. Another is Decipherment of Indus Valley Script. And this is complete catalog of all the seal of National Museum and Archaeological Survey. So that will give you picture, colored picture. And another one is there. But I never attempted on the script because this is something
Yeah, correct.
I
It's
mean,
hard.
some people object, some people. But one thing I still feel, Proto-Dravidian is a contender, what Parpola says, Mahadevan Ali has said.
Yes.
But there was another script also, because I saw some of the inscription goes from left to right and mostly right to left. And
Possible,
I
yeah.
will inform you, recently Dr. B.R. Mani published a paper. There is another script like Kharoshti in this Gandhar and Afghanistan region. We call it Khoi script. This is published by an Australian scholar. This also run from left to right. So I will send you all these papers. I wish you start your work from fresh line.
Okay.
This is very wonderful thing what you said. I convinced with, and as far as north and south is concerned, everything is same. Nag Panchami is also there. All things are there.
Correct.
When you visit any famous temple in Tamil Nadu, they begin with the Tamil language, then they start with Sanskrit.
Yes.
So there is no
Correct.
difference if you say two languages, two script, no problem.
Yeah. I don't see a problem. It's
Yeah,
syncretic.
yeah. You please, first of all, you must see original seal. If you
Yeah.
have any problem, I will help you.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. In
And
fact, I was meaning to talk to you.
One comment, not a question. I mean, I don't want to enter into an argument here. Actually, a lot of preconceived notions. I think you should discard all your preconceived notions,
Okay.
because you see the seals, they were not meant for any these kind of religious activities, nothing like that. It was meant for a ownership record. If you look into the Mesopotamian sources, it is a clear ownership record for trade, nothing more than that. You may attach any number of your own preconceived notions. That's why Ascoporpola himself has failed. Okay? We have in the Mesopotamian context the proper names, right? We have two seals from Mesopotamia which mention the name of the person, owner of the seal, and his father's name or patrilineal name, and the deity's name. That's it. Nothing beyond that. Don't enter into all kind of superlative assumptions. And for your information, Great Bath, it is not the Great Bath. Okay, there are larger reservoirs at Dholavira.
I have been there, sir.
At least 4 times. Not being there is not enough actually. Dholavira reservoirs are 4 times bigger than the so-called Great Bath. It was a Great Bath at that particular point of time, given a superlative terminology. I think we should depart from all these things and attaching meaning from our own perspective, like what Dr. Selvarkumar told. It's an ethic perspective. You are attaching your own meaning based upon your own training, based upon your own upbringing. Okay, nothing beyond that. So you need to have an unbiased view. You need to discard all preconceived notions, and you need to understand the context of the seals. That is more important. The context, if you depart away from the context, all your attempts will be failing.
Thank you for that feedback. I have taken one seal and I have produced a hypothesis. Okay, whether anybody agrees or not, tough luck. This is my hypothesis. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you,
Back
sir.
to the moderators.